When it comes to bringing the sci-fi space opera genre to video game format, only so many titles have gotten close to the impact that the Mass Effect franchise had. Starting with its first, originally released back on the Xbox 360 no-scope in 2007, Mass Effect 1 was an epic game that delivered on all of its sci-fi RPG goodness. A galaxy-spanning story that involves the very fate of the universe, a setting rich with an exorbitant amount of alien entities, complete with their own history and lore, your own fun ragtag crew of personalities to connect with, best girl in the franchise, everyone else doesn't matter except maybe Garrus, and some very awkward romance that gets cringier by the day.
Shepard, I like bold.
A very well put together game that was not only part of the amazing 2007 catalog, which by the way includes Modern Warfare, Halo 3, Bioshock, The Orange Box, God of War 2, and Rock Band to name a few. Damn, what a year. It was also one of the new and original IPs created by the then legendary developer BioWare, whose library of RPG games were both well made and beloved in the early 2000s. If you don't mind my personal input, Mass Effect marked a pretty big turning point for my interest in video games, as it was the first of several RPGs around that era, including Oblivion, Dragon Age, and Fallout 3, that really shoved me into the RPG rabbit hole. Without it, I probably wouldn't have had any interests in franchises like Baldur's, Pillars, Divinity, The Witcher, or even just stepping into D&D for that matter. A game that actually showed me a whole new world to step into. But after roughly 18 years, does the first Mass Effect have some of that sci-fi magic to still make it hold up?
I'm Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite store on the Citadel.
Mass Effect 1 is an epic tale that seemingly starts off as a military sci-fi story, which quickly turns into something more. Basically the end of the universe. The setting takes place in the distant future, where humanity discovered remnants of an ancient civilization whose technology allowed them to advance to the point of interstellar travel. Taking on the role of Commander Shepard of the Human Alliance Navy, your mission involves retrieving an artifact beacon from the Protheans, a technologically advanced civilization that had been wiped out 50,000 years ago. Also the ones who are responsible for the advancement of mankind's technology. But before arriving on the planet of Eden Prime, something dark is afoot. The colony is attacked by an unknown force, which leads to Shepard and his team trying to fight their way to the beacon. Also, slapping a few fools in the process. While trying to secure it, Shepard receives a disturbing transmission depicting images of death and destruction. In the aftermath, he and his team lead an investigation into a rogue Spectre agent named Saren, who was responsible for the attack on Eden Prime.
These accusations. Nihilus was a fellow Spectre and a friend.
That just let you catch him off guard.
Captain Anderson, you always seem to be involved when humanity makes false charges against me.
What ultimately follows is Shepard and his team learning of the existence of the Reapers, a technologically advanced machine race who were responsible for wiping out the Protheans.
Before us, you are nothing. Your extinction is inevitable. We are the end of everything.
With Saren's sole purpose of trying to bring back the Reapers, it's up to Shepard and his team to stop him. Epic is the word to describe the setting, thanks in part to the scale at which the story spans a galactic-wide net that encompasses all manner of alien races, history, and worlds across Mass Effect's universe. Despite being around 18 years old, what Mass Effect still nails right in its storytelling is the setup. This comes in both the way the game handles its technical narrative, along with how enriching the world is for the player to go through. Sure, most fans like myself already know what's going on, but going back to the first game reminded me how much they put into making the players become familiar with the world. In particular, the portion where you get to explore the Citadel right after the first mission. There's a lot for the player to learn from, like the Volus and Elcor ambassadors, the VI interface, the C-Sec officers, the Asari consort you can insert yourself into. There's a lot for the player to come across and learn about the world.
They are the true creators of this one's people.
In some cases, I actually think the first game does the setup better than its two sequels. But of course, this is especially important because Mass Effect 1 is the first introduction to the franchise, so trying to make the world building count within the first few hours is very important. And they've done an excellent job that's still apparent. Even without the other games taken into account, just the story itself is put together very well. from the very first mission all the way to your confrontation with Sovereign. Even when I've been through it before, and yes, there are times where I just want to speed through the story, I still wanted to hear all of the detailed dialogue and explanations that you come across while exploring the Citadel, because it wouldn't be Mass Effect without it. In fact, one of the other amazing aspects that makes this game still stand out is how detailed it tries to be, to the point that planets get to have their own written lore, and codex entries get their own narration.
Roughly 1,200 years ago, the Turians were invited to join the Citadel Council to fulfill the role of galactic peacekeepers.
A lot of detail is put into almost every possible aspect of Mass Effect's world, and a lot of care and attention is given to make sure that players get to have a good experience. Heck, even though using the Mako can get repetitive, it's still a cool feature in making the game's sci-fi theme immersive as possible. But outside of all the world building, lore, and history, it's the characters that have and always will keep me coming back. Garrus, Rex, Kaidan, who I always RIP, sorry man, Ashley, Talizora Vas Waifu, Captain Keith David.
So I'll do whatever it takes to get you on the Normandy and off this station.
Anderson,
Welcome to hell,
I didn't.
motherfucker!
Not only contribute such an array of unique personalities, but stories that are natural to Shepard's journey and companionship. And let's not forget the other characters which help complete the story's cast. The villain Saren, his right-hand matriarch Benezia, the counselors, and literally every other NPC just feel like a natural part of Mass Effect's world. While I do find the main story and the setting to be the best highlights, the side stories tend to be on the okay to kinda terrible side. Some of them are pretty interesting, like the rogue AI that Shepard's team has to deal with on the actual moon of Earth, but the vast majority are pretty mundane and barely held my interest in the overall story. I do genuinely remember trying to finish all of them when I first played this game back then, but considering more recent RPG games where the side questing actually feels interesting with their own stories, Mass Effect pales in comparison. Whether due to the age or an oversight in the design, I really wasn't compelled to finish them again. Though I suspect it might be due to design, considering how much of them are structured for gameplay. More on that later. The only other thing that feels off after coming back is Commander Shepard himself. He does have his moments of charisma and charm.
Commander, you of all people should understand how far we must go to protect humanity.
Not if we lose our humanity in the process. I'm out there fighting to stop crap like this.
But he can feel very monotone at times, because he's usually always the one asking the questions, while everyone else responds in detail.
How well do you know the lieutenant? Isn't it strange that a Krogan would want to speak with C-Sec? What does that have to do with it? You think the Alliance brass is holding out on us? How did you end up serving on an Alliance ship?
I enlisted right out of med school.
I should go.
As for the romance in this game, nah, that shit doesn't hold up. Ashley, Kaidan, and Liara are genuinely interesting to talk to when they discuss their backstory and history, but their romance paths don't exactly excite whatsoever. It's just very surface level and kind of forced now that I'm coming back to it.
Is my rank all you see when you look at me?
No. I see a strong, passionate man with a great ass.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Actually, I wonder if Best Girl still holds up in the second. Also, the choice-driven consequence is still a very cool feature when you factor in the potential playthrough of the second and third games. Playing it retrospectively has always made me think about what I should or shouldn't let happen in the sequels, and I still think it makes for an amazingly built narrative for Shepard's journey. One of, if not the only franchise at the moment to actually have a story implementation like this across different games, and still a very big highlight. An epic story with a world brimming with characters and personalities to complement it perfectly, only let down by some older design that feels rudimentary, but barely an issue with trying to experience the main story.
Report to the ship as soon as possible. We're bang, okay?
Primarily built as a third-person RPG shooter, Mass Effect 1's system is rather simple. You first get to create Shepard in any way you wish, either pre-made John Jane Mass Effect, or custom Shepard. You get to pick your background, which has some story impact, and ultimately your class, which determines your combat capabilities, ranging from biotic psychonaut, tech-savvy geek squad expert, or John Wick aficionado. Once finished, you go through the story earning both experience and credits, which helps you determine what abilities you want to progress, and equipment you want on Shepard. Looting is still priority number one.
Yeah, boy.
The same applies for your squad mates once you've acquired them, and you can customize their equipment and abilities however you wish. Otherwise, it's a very traditional third-person shooter, and you'll be gunning around while you go through the main story. It's decently fun to go back to. Not quite something I think is unique or worth solely playing for, since the shooting, cover, weapon swapping, and abilities kind of feel a bit basic. But it at least makes the game fun while you move from mission to mission. It's been a while since I've played 2 and 3, but I'm pretty confident in saying that the second and third games have much more improved combat. There's not that much depth to it either. Sure, there's various abilities that both biotic and tech users can take advantage of in countering certain enemies, as well as some tactical commands for your squad mates, but at the end of the day, as long as you're doing enough damage, you'll get through the game just fine without having to worry about min-maxing. Might be a different story on the harder difficulties, but I was never really motivated to play anything past Veteran, since Mass Effect 1 was more of a story-driven game for me. Now, it is pretty obvious that I'm playing on the Legendary Edition, but when I tried to play the original for a short while, I barely noticed any major gameplay changes other than some quality of life stuff. Otherwise, the gameplay is pretty much the same. I would have liked to continue in the original to really test out the older system, but I kind of stopped caring once I crashed. I do think the RPG aspects feel pretty light in comparison after having come from other games with deeper systems. In combat, it comes from the fact that most abilities either do damage or defend, so the majority of them didn't feel unique enough to warrant use, when some weapons like the sniper and assault rifles will do the job without cooldown, for the most part. Might just be me though, because of the way I set up my Shepard as a soldier. Also, I kinda ran into the one assault rifle family that for some reason felt stupidly overpowered. On the social interaction side, the only major influence are the Paragon and Renegade options, which boils down to whether or not you've invested enough points to actually get to use them. I think it's still a pretty cool system, in at least giving Shepard some extra personal responses in being a saint or an absolute menace. But now with deeper RPG systems using different attributes to persuade or find solutions, not to mention some which use dice rolls as the main driving factor, the binary Paragon and Renegade option feels a little too safe and easy nowadays. Outside of the main gameplay, you also get to occasionally pilot the Mako vehicle during certain sections. Now, for all its weird clunky, hilarious handling when driving over different types of terrain, I do have a soft spot for the vehicle after all these years because of how laughably overpowered its weapon systems are. Plus, the thing has a jump.
Nope.
Admittedly, the side missions where you use it to explore planets gets repetitive pretty quickly, because that's all you really do. Oh, and yes, that reminds me. I mentioned how these side missions are very uninteresting, and that's attributed by how stupidly repetitive they also are. The near majority involves you searching for a group of enemies in different systems and worlds, but for some reason, they have a tendency to use the same base layout. There's even a DLC mission that uses the same bunker 3 times in a row. The other thing that really doesn't hold up is enemy design, in that all of them have the same AI movement and patterns. Now, I am speaking as someone who wants just a little more challenge when it comes to target practice, and so it gets a bit boring for me when I have to shoot the same thing over and over again. But in fairness, if you're not coming to this game looking to blast targets and practice your 360 no-scope, it's at least a fun shooting gallery for those who don't want to take it too seriously. Though it is entertaining when the shotgun enemies will run at you like Attack on Titan. Ultimately, the gameplay is a decent RPG shooter that now feels a bit rudimentary if you want something more complex, or you've seen what the other 2 sequel games have to offer. But it's at least serviceable to a degree that it still feels fun to shoot for most people.
I'm Garrus Vicarian, and this is now my favorite spot on the Citadel.
Okay, just to quickly judge the game on its original 2007 graphics, because I did try to play it again, but only for it to fail miserably. Man, does this shit look rough. Actually, the lighting and shadows look pretty cinematic, but the texture details have aged horribly. Corporal Jenkins looks like he could be an extra in Wallace and Gromit. But since we managed to get a remaster for the first, it looks significantly better, but not the most jaw-dropping. The texture materials make the game look more presentable for a modern playthrough, From the facial models, clothing, armor, even the background textures look a lot better. In terms of its art style, I do think Mass Effect has a certain, I like to call it, clean sci-fi look that was always very unique to the game. Sleek and futuristic, but with the added setting of spacefaring and planet scouting. A lot of it you can see in the designs of ships, buildings, the mass relays, and most definitely the Citadel. A lot of whites are used for the more pristine portions, more metallic for things technical and industrial, and earthly colors for the more natural areas. Very varied and all-encompassing to showcase a wide array of worlds in Mass Effect's universe. But the biggest standouts visually are the different alien races. From the Volus, the Hanar, the Krogan, the Turians, the Solarians, there's just an outstanding array of different alien species with their own unique silhouettes. A lot of them are very natural and animal inspired, but still manage to look alien by comparison thanks to their humanoid stature. Actually, anything that isn't human already looks 10 times better. Even enemy designs like the Geth or Sovereign have very iconic silhouettes that stand out. But if there's one thing that hasn't changed much since release, and in a good way, it's the sound design. While there's some typical sound effects you'd hear from most shooters, like explosions, guns being fired, and vehicles being driven, the electronic sounds of things like menuing, spaceships taking off, and Geth speaking, all of it maintains the sense of sci-fi-ness thanks to its electronic soundscape. The music of Mass Effect still happens to be one of the most uniquely fitting sci-fi soundtracks that also manages to create its space opera-like feel. The near majority, if not all of it, sounds entirely electronic, but still able to emphasize different moods and scenes from simple conversations to more grand spectacles. The voice acting is still phenomenal as always. There's a few character nitpicks, but for the most part, 18 years has not hurt the majority of the voice cast. From your crew members, the main plot cast, and just as important, the NPCs, they're all exceptional in capturing the moods, personalities, and mannerisms to make Mass Effect's world come alive.
Matriarchs are powerful Asari who have entered the final stage of their lives. Revered for their wisdom and experience, they serve as guides and mentors to my people.
I was betrayed. I was head of a small tribe. We were trying to restore order after the war, but the other tribes were against us.
I had no idea you found ship technology so interesting.
It comes with being a Quarian. The migrant fleet is the key to the survival of my people. Ships are our most valuable resource.
It's also impressive that the first game features both a fully voiced male and female Shepard, thanks to Mark Meer and Jennifer Hale.
Sounds like you don't trust our Turian guest.
Overall, the conversations are pretty much the same when interacting with either Shepards, save for some characters addressing their pronouns. I do think their tonal reactions and voice make both Shepards feel different, so if you are interested in experiencing both sides, it does warrant another playthrough as the other gendered Shepard. Also, you can date Best Boy, and the other Best Boy. It's not quite all perfect though. In some cases, there's a bit of emotional dissonance with how characters interact, and some awkward timings with Shepard, as I mentioned earlier.
Most biotics now use the...
I should go.
While I'm not expecting perfect voice acting from an older title like this, they're just a bit noticeable, especially when you consider how good the other voice acting parts are. Still a very good and even updated presentation for players to hop into Mass Effect 1. It's hard to recommend the original release because the remaster has numerous quality of life improvements for modern day playthroughs. Plus, if you're kinda wanting to play the other games, you might as well stick with the Legendary Edition as it'll make the transition to those save files a lot easier.
We're bang, okay?
So, does it hold up? Yes. While I think there are a lot of aspects that have not aged particularly well, its main story aspects are still very convincing in bringing together an amazing world for players to enjoy. In fact, those design setups used to create Mass Effect's story do an arguably better job than certain games that try to establish a new and interesting world for players to explore. Of course, if you're a fan of Mass Effect, then it's hard to recommend a single game in the original trilogy since all three kinda just exist in their own bubble collectively, and all of them are still worth going through, especially when it's easier now that the Legendary Edition combines all three. In fact, I'm probably playing Mass Effect 2 right now! But on its own, Mass Effect 1 is still a fun game worth experiencing in its own right. Whether you haven't played it in a while, or you're just getting into the franchise for the first time, its story, world, and characters are what keeps it endearing after all these years, and an amazing introduction to the franchise. But that's gonna do it for today, guys. Thanks for sticking around. There will be more games to play and more videos coming soon, so please stay tuned if you'd like to see more. But for now, I'll see you all next time.